We're live. Welcome to Earful of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast. I'm Corey Munson, coming to you live from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm joined, as always, by Aaron Castro in Phoenix, Arizona, and Liam Madigan-Freed. I'm sorry, Aaron, you're not in Phoenix. You're more like someplace else, right? Yeah, Tempe.
Phoenix is good.
And Liam Poach is down in Houston. I apologize, guys. Josh Redlin is over in our comments section. He is moderating, as always, taking your comments and questions, all that good stuff. So be sure to hit him up throughout the show. So with all that said, guys, how was your week?
Well, now my watch has ended. We will talk about that later, at the end. But so what else went down? I guess in the world. Oh, here's a good one. Apparently, we're in a trade war with China, and we're going to start a shooting war with Iran. That's going to be great.
Good
recall notice, so I can go.
Yeah, good thing none of us are in the prime frickin' drafting age, right?
Well, I'm sort of still in the Army, so just issue my recall notice. I'll be glad to return to active duty if we are actually going to do this thing. If we're not, let's just shut the hell up and let me get back to rugby, please.
Yeah, Logan. If anybody wants to come invade the United States, I will gladly join up. But ain't going to fight for no Earl.
All right. Well, not a whole lot happening in Iowa. We're just watching the rain fall, so that's our big thing. Liam, I think you're kind of with me down there in Texas. Sounds like a rough one today for you guys too.
Dude, the humidity is ridiculous right now. I'm kind of fading in and out.
Our weather went from like approaching like the doldrums of summer to amazing. It was only like 82 today, the high, and it wasn't really humid. It was like 30%. It was just delicious.
Yeah, but don't you guys like have your cars get melted and stuff like that in the summer?
Yeah, that's gonna happen in about 3 weeks or so, I think. So it's gonna be rough. That was I gotta say, when we moved, I guess in February. A garage was a big decider on where we moved to because gotta keep them cars nice and clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I used to have a film professor who said like when he grew up in northern Arizona and it was just commonplace to have a towel in your car just to put over the steering wheel and just so you could actually grip it when you wanted to drive.
Yes, it's
or while you were parked.
Interesting you say garage because I feel like that's one thing we have in common where up here we look for garages to keep the snow off us during the winter.
Yeah.
And down there you keep the garages to keep the heat off the car during the summer. So we're the same, you and I.
Again, to prevent it from melting, that's a reality in Arizona. Like not the entire car, but bumpers and stuff.
So now that we've wasted a Game of Thrones amount of time bullshitting, Aaron, what we got coming up on this episode?
Well, the Swamp Donkeys got upset by the Kingdom. So that was actually a really cool game. We'll get into that. Seattle just they jumped up out of the ocean and they ate some birds. But however, it was not a scoring record for Major League Rugby, which I found interesting. Two more tries and it would have been delicious for everyone in the league because I think we would have passed the scoring record. 2 converted tries and we definitely would have. A battered Legion solidify their position, beating the Warriors. And New York, they're back in playoff contention with their victory this weekend, their bonus point victory, which was much needed for them. But we'll talk about why that may not be the path towards enlightenment.
I guess I should say before we get too far into the show that we are Earful of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast, and we do this each and every Monday night where we discuss news, rumors, and everything about Major League Rugby, the United States Professional Rugby Union. It's our chance to look at the issues, hear from the league, players, and team leadership, and check in with our friends from across the U.S. rugby scene. So let's start things off with that in mind and talk about the thrilla in NOLA. SaberCats. Guys, Liam, they won. The final score was 27-20. SaberCats over NOLA Gold. Tell me about it. Liam, unmute.
God, sorry about that. Yeah, I was reading from my my notes and I didn't notice stuff because But anyway, to talk about rugby, what can I say? The guys played their best and most complete game of the season. Some head-to-head stats for you guys. Houston, fantastic, 61% possession advantage, along with a 62% rate in territory. 867 total meters for the SaberCats. So not exactly eye-popping, but 174 of those meters were accounted by Joshua Beatty alone. And we'll talk about him a little bit more later. They ended the night with a pretty good average meters per pass of 4.4. NOLA, meanwhile, 436 total meters gained, which, big testament to Houston's improved defense. NOLA's usually an offense that can really rack up those meters just on line breaks alone. NOLA went home with an average MVP of about 3.9, 4.0, call it what you will if you want to round up, which is, either way, is pretty below the league average of about 5.0. Their leader on the ground was Tristan Blewett, only 58 meters in this game, which is definitely below his average, but he still was able to secure a try, which, definitely not unusual for the Blewett man. Houston, very, much improved defense in this one, especially inside the 22, and it's a big reason why they came away with this victory. But what really got them over the top, though, was line speed. We saw a much bigger focus, from the SaberCats on getting the ball to the outside, offloading in tight windows, and most importantly, giving the ball to Joshua Vithi as many times as they would give the ball to Jonah Lamu. He's the most dynamic player on this team in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's a ton of players on this team who are just as skilled, but you can't really match it when it comes to his edge in both the defensive and offensive phases of the game. Josh, he didn't manage to find the in goal, unfortunately, but he was probably more so responsible for setting up 2 out of 3 tries for Houston on the night.
Really a lot of stuff to look at in this game. Really two different things for me. From front to back, there was connection with this team. I would say, people talk about mental fitness. Not like mental health, but mental fitness, like recovery systems and all that fun psycho mumbo jumbo. It actually is important because, and honest, like they were also more physically fit. People might say different, but like if you look at the way they've been playing games, I know that they are fit players and they've done a lot of fitness, especially in the preseason. But if you look at just how sluggish they've been, early in the season, when you had a team like Glendale that was able to, concede 40-some points, go down 32-0 to the SaberCats, and then score 50-some points, on the runaway to win that game. This was different. This was probably the only game. This was the only game of the weekend where the losing side actually had to tackle more than the winning side, which is sort of going against the phenomenon that we had earlier on in the season, which was all of the losing sides had to tackle a heck of a lot more than the winning side. And that goes into the territory game, but really the field position game for the SaberCats was, I wouldn't say negated because they didn't really put the ball in play, but NOLA didn't put the ball in play a lot either, and they also didn't get a lot of good coverage on those kicks. They didn't, like, yes, 13 kicks for 377 meters. That sort of sounds good sometimes, but if you just look at the passes they've made, the turnovers conceded, a lot of the SaberCats territory was a lot of positive territory gained inside the 50 in the opposition, which was really good for them. They had their gain line percentage compared to New Orleans, 71-61. One of the things that they definitely did work on, which was sort of similar to what Glendale does, is a high ball movement attack. If you look at the pass differential, there was over 70 more passes for the SaberCats on this game. Turnovers, one of the reasons why it was so close is that they gave up the ball a lot, but so did the goal. But still a 7-to-10 turnover ratio. And also when it came to penalties, the penalties were even. But there's a theme that I'll get into tonight about this one, though, is set piece attack and good old, I'm going to say success, and making that not a 50-50 thing. The set piece attack for the SaberCats, which they've struggled a bit in the lineout, but really just been dominant in the scrum. They've won 100% of their scrums. 100% of their lineups. They got in the way of NOLA's lineout with one. They stole one, bringing NOLA's lineout to 93%. But where they really did damage was that NOLA only had 63% of their scrums won. And so I guess I said it earlier in the season, Santiago Arata. I said he was worth at least 2 wins. I said he was worth 2 wins. And this goes into Ben Darwin is this guy that runs a company called Gainline Analytics, and he didn't respond to me. Ben, get back to me. I know you're out there lurking. But I want to somehow create the WAR metric in rugby, because this does exist. Like, there are players that have wins above replacement. And he's one of those guys at scrum half where, if he were American, he'd probably be the starting scrum half for the Eagles. I'm pretty sure. That opinion also comes from some other people, but if you watch him, especially in the ARC, he'd definitely be the top scrum half in Canada. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, well, one of the things I mentioned when a little bit earlier is that the Cats won this game with line speed, and when you look at Santiago Arata's quick ball rate in this game, I think it was around 74%, if I'm correct.
Well, I mean, I don't know what his rate was because you guys like slowed it down a lot. You guys had a quick ball percentage of 56.
56%. Well, honestly, but as I mentioned, inside tight windows, I felt like the line speed was a whole lot quicker, just in terms of fluidity. And I think that Santi, when he had a clean platform out of the set piece, he set that up perfectly. For them to be able to execute. They've had problems, especially with depth at times. Like coming out of the set piece, which I thought was not that as big of an issue in this game.
So most teams haven't been like Austin. So just looking at their glow percentage for New Orleans, and this is the only time I can recall that it's been under 50%. SaberCats held the gain line over percentage of New Orleans to 46%. That's insane, considering, think about where this attack was going and how this attack played. And even in this game, they still played pretty well. Like, they had those moments to where there was a reason why they were, within shooting distance at the end, they got the losing bonus point, and they sort of just like took it because, man, that the line speed on defense of the SaberCats, it was, I would say it was improved against New York, but it wasn't this. Like, this is very San Diego, like a couple weeks ago before they had a bunch of injuries. It was just really intense. It was really good. I wonder what it's going to look like this week. Joshua Vithi, he shredded that defense. And one of the things that was interesting for him is he always looked to the interior and to find support instead of just forcing a gap or really even finding space. And when you think about it in that context and putting the team first, and he still gained 174 meters, ridiculous. Honestly, like I said, battered and disrupted that flying attack of the Gold. So a really good complete game for the SaberCats following some big changes in the last quarter of the season. And congratulations to interim coach and also, I guess, interim forwards coach. So interim head coach, Cactus Paul Emmerich, and Darren Morris is the interim forwards coach for the SaberCats. He is a British and Irish Lion and a Welsh international, really good guy. Good to see him being able to get involved with Major League Rugby.
Excellent. Yeah, it was a surprise all the way across. So great game, and good for the SaberCats to finally pull a big scalp there. So next up, we had Seattle traveling to Glendale, and if the outcome wasn't so much a surprise, certainly the scoreline was to me. Seattle thumped them, beating Glendale 53-36. Aaron, start us off on this one.
I'm just gonna look at my prediction. Yeah, wow, that was way off, but it was definitely correct. So, yeah, this was a weird one, but if you're a fan of points, this is your game. JP Smith's last outing at fly half, though, was pretty awful. The last time Ben Seymour was injured, he hurt, but this time he earned the start at scrum half over Phil Mack, which he had started at scrum half over Phil Mack against New York. And he showed, he had really good command of the attack as a 9. But the concussion to Ben Seymour in, I think, at minute 2 or 3, in the early part of this match led to a big shift in how this attack was going to run. Phil Mack comes in to play scrum half, and JP just goes on this rampage at fly half, showing, his tank main gun for a leg with these booming kicks to put Glendale in some weird field position early on in that first half. Glendale, they did a lot of work in the scrum. They were okay. They weren't amazing. But I guess when you look at did some of Glendale's guys still get theirs? Yeah, Ryberg had 200 meters. DTS had 120 meters. Both had a lot of high involvements with line breaks and offloads. But the defense for Seattle really shut down the Raptors in a way that they really haven't been able to do, like what their defense did to Seawall last year. They haven't really done that. Even against New York, which they did batter New York pretty hard, it was still a relatively close game. It looked to me that the Raptors like I said, did reach some parity with Seattle in the scrum because they won 100% of their scrums, where it really didn't matter. And this goes into the set piece. I'm going to talk about the set piece all show. Seattle won 100% of their lineouts, and they forced Glendale with 2 steals to a 75% rating. Penalties, turnovers, penalties. They had 2 more infringements for Glendale, so really not a crazy thing for them. But the difference was in turnovers conceded. Even though they had this really high ball movement attack, it didn't really work out for them because they coughed up the ball and sort of, in a different way, looked like if it wasn't against Seattle, it would have looked different. but I also don't think they would have been forced into that many turnovers. Still, a 2-to-1 ratio of 14-7 turnovers is going to make that attack sputter, and was definitely a big reason behind why they lost this game. But also, we did talk about the seawall a little bit. They made a lot more tackles than Glendale. 186 to 131, so a 55 tackle difference. They missed a bunch more, and their tackle made percentage was actually lower. But that's what sort of happens when the other team puts up 200 more meters than you. It was really came down to turnovers and set piece. Interesting. This was sort of similar to the SaberCats versus New Orleans game in quick ball rates versus the winning side. Glendale had a 71% quick ball rate, and Seattle only 50%. I think depending on what you're trying to do, I don't think grinding it down to like 50% is really that good. I can understand being in the 70% range if you're trying to play field position and just time of possession. But even though they scored 50 points, if they bring up that attacking rate, and we would see something a bit different, because this attack from Seattle looked really good.
So, as one day, Glendale Raptors have now fallen victim to my age-old nemesis, and that is known as math, because they are at the complete and utter mercy of math in order to get into the playoffs. They not only, Aaron, I think you explained it, on our email thread at some points. They need to win out, and then they need San Diego to lose out, and then I think they need a Thanos snap or something like that.
It's not San Diego. It's not San Diego losing out, but I think they need both. They need to win out, and New York needs to lose both. It's like New York needs to lose both games, and I think they need to win, and it's the game that they play Toronto in right this weekend. They need to win this game with a bonus point. And yes, Thanos probably needs to die.
Yeah, so a lot riding on these next couple of matches for Glendale. No surprise there, though. I honestly, I've been saying since we were a quarter way through the season that I think Glendale was going to ultimately miss the playoffs. They definitely, I don't want to say that they're a less complete team than they were a year ago. They added Hanko. I think Mika Cruze has kind of come into his own. But I think the depth of competition in Major League Rugby and, the increased fitness and, attention to detail, especially when it comes to stuff like film study, I think, Glendale is no longer at the forefront in USA Rugby on all of that stuff. And I think that's why they're having a lot more.
I think what they really, the thing that's really affected them, and sort of in the same way that is affecting NOLA right now, is they did not get better up front. For a period of time, I didn't think Seattle got good and did add enough pieces, but it shows that cohesion, like that core that they had, plus a little extra pepper on top was enough, and it is enough, and they're going to, they have a shot at even making a 2 seed in the playoffs, which will be very interesting compared to, especially with the firepower they've added with Jake Yelnicki, Samu Manoa, and Jeffrey Hassler. Like they've brought in like their benches. Their benches, could start. It's ridiculous. But I would say the team that didn't add enough talent to places that it needed talent was Glendale, because they're missing the lineout threat.
I think the Hanko signing kind of overshadowed that fact too, because I think when it's not Hanko Hammersheiser, you're like, oh well, they won free agency. But
Hanko has a high work rate. He had a bunch of great success earlier on in the season, but he's also He's been out for like 4 weeks. So, and they've lost games in that period. So, yes, it only. But if they're one injury away, but Henko was still not where their weakness was. Like they had strong back row. So that, they're they've got a lot of shit to work on going for next season.
No, most definitely. And honestly, I thought this game was in a pretty reasonable margin for Glendale, right up until like the middle of the second half. Eventually, it just kind of became clear that Glendale's defense, for whatever reason, they just weren't responding to the Seawolf. They just weren't responding well to the Seawolf attack in either their defensive shifts or in their tackling. This doesn't look like a team that's going to do well in a playoff rematch, should that potentially happen. In the head-to-head in the stat report, 50-50 split. Pretty surprising in both the possession advantage and in territory. Considering the high score, I guess not too surprising, but just not very often you see something like that. When it comes to meters gained, Glendale came out with 1,072 total with an average MPP of 5.4. However, what needs to be taken into account, especially when you have guys like Johnny Ryberg and DTS on the roster with 4 and 3 of these apiece, is the 13 line breaks that this team had. I'm not sure how many of Glendale's meters we can really chalk up to efficiency of their system, and how much of it is just kind of purely the result of athletic prowess getting, I don't want to say getting lucky, but you know what I mean.
Okay, but is this one of those games where you consider that Glendale probably picked up like 300 meters in garbage? Because that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, because Johnny Ryberg had 4 line breaks. I don't have the stat report up with me, but I'm pretty sure Mika had 1, DTS had 3, and I think there was 13 line breaks total in the game. So I think that that it's pretty safe to say that there was some garbage meters. I think I had the average MPP around here. What did I say? It was 5.4. So not ridiculously high, especially when you compare that to Seattle's MPP of 6.6 with 802 meters on the ground. So so whatever it was with Glendale, Seattle was just more efficient either way. You take a closer look at the stat sheet. 5 players between the two teams went over 100 meters gained in this game. Ryberg led the way with 200 even of his own, while Stoller and Hadding for Seattle led the way with 114 and 104 respectively. So a lot of big runs, a lot of production in this game in terms of meters on the ground, hence the high score. Glendale, they're still a talented, competitive team, but losing this one, I think, is going to be ultimately what cost them their trip to the postseason.
Yeah, well, once again, Glendale, it's tough because you can never completely count them out, but certainly they are not looking like the team they were last season, so that's for sure. So third matchup of the weekend saw San Diego traveling to Utah, and this one was still pretty close. San Diego won by 10 points, 31-21. That's a little closer than I thought it was going to be anyway. Liam, I think you're going to lead us off and tell us what happened this time.
Yeah, so Mikey Te'o, you dog, you savage, you cold-hearted, talented USA Rugby fullback legend. If any of those watching or listening at home don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about Mikey Te'o's game-sealing pick 5 in this match's dying seconds that put to bed any hope that Utah had of a comeback in that all-elusive third win for them. But believe me, the score was a lot closer than it looks because it felt like Utah was bringing the heat all game, and honestly, a win kind of seemed reasonable at some points. Head-to-head, Utah came out on top in both possession and advantage with 54 and 58% respectively. Not any eye-popping numbers when it comes to meters gained. Utah just slightly edging the Legion 558 meters to 515 for San Diego. However, one notable difference in San Diego's MPP was 6.0, marginally higher than Utah's 4.0. One metric I can hardly look away from, though, and it's no wonder this game was so close to the very end, 13 penalties conceded by San Diego compared to just 5 from Utah. So you got to give them credit. Utah didn't want to beat themselves, and it for all intents and purposes, they didn't beat themselves. It just kind of seems, at least in this game, this time, they got beat by better strategy. And, the #1 defense in the league, #5 attack, I believe. I'll give it to them. It was close.
So, but I think we can put to bed the Thompson and Revuvu idea of them playing this season. Yes, no, maybe so. But here's why. So, Adam Thompson, right? Adam, not Andrew, right? The All Black, is recovering from a spinal infection that he suffered in the second half of 2018. And Revuvu just had his first child last month in Fiji. Congratulations, my man. Good for you and your wife. I don't, whatever a good blessing is, may your child grow very tall and strong so that they can be a lock. So I think these guys were definitely announced when they were announced, sort of to like, hey, we've got really strong players coming in for next season. And, this is just a dip. I have to look at how even this game was, and I suppose how uneven it was. San Diego made the game line 90% more than Utah did. They were more efficient. They had more kicking meters, and it's just how they play. They put the ball in play for a chip and chase, and they put the ball in play, and then they kick far to make you come out of your own 22. Set pieces, again, I'm going to talk about this one. If you get dominated in the scrum and line out, it's going to be a bad day at the office. Utah continues to struggle in both the scrum and in the lineout. The lineout very weird because they've met Jensen, a 6'8", massively tall gazelle that can go up, but they don't really use him that effectively. And it's just kind of weird. They, they made a nuisance of themselves, but they did not get any lineout steals. Scrum versus whatnot, 86% to 67% on the differential there. Honestly, it was a fairly dominant game, but we've sort of seen this before from other teams to where they just won't, they'll leave somebody in. They'll leave this for chance, and that's because of those infringements. Holy frick. 15-5. The turnovers were even, 10-10. So San Diego just stayed in their way. Their lack of discipline caught up with them. It's going to stop you from rolling. Pat Blair got a yellow in the second half, which saw something interesting. Hey, guys, they did not lose a scrum that was there put in with Dino Waldron hooking. How do you like that? Ha! I did not know Dino Waldron could hook. Good for him. I thought this was a fit Utah side, and in San Diego, it definitely wasn't. If you look at this roster, they had a bunch of guys out that they were resting or were hurt. Joe Peterson had a dead leg from the previous game, and they said, let's go Ty. And I guess Ty's been kicking okay in practice because he had 3 kicks in this game for conversions and missed 2 of them pretty badly, which, overall that didn't work out, but he must be kicking in practice, right? Also, let's talk about goal kickers taking 90 seconds. I know that's the law, but he almost got eaten by Matt Jensen twice by taking the full amount of time. If San Diego cleaned themselves up on those penalties, it really wouldn't have been that close of a game, I think. And we were talking about line speed and defense. This is more similar to that SaberCats game in that they had more tackles. And they actually had a higher tackle percentage than Utah. So very, very interesting game to an extent to see how how San Diego would come out. San Diego actually didn't use a lot of their bench. Think about how many guys were left on the bench. Kyle Rogers, Will Holder, Devin Short, and Aaron Mitchell. So they only had 3 guys come off the bench.
Honestly, that lineup of guys could start for the Austin Elite right now and make them marginally better. No offense.
Yeah. That's. I mean, that's kind of true. Devin Short would be value added. Siaosi Mahoney, I think, be value added. Aaron Mitchell would be value added. But yeah, and they didn't really get Utah really didn't get the needed stuff out of their substitutions.
All right. The last matchup of the weekend was Austin going to New York City to face off against RUNY. And this one was probably the least surprising out of the entire weekend, I'd say. RUNY pretty well handled that, winning 27-7 over the Austin Elite. So, Aaron, start us off with some analysis on this one.
So Liam and I were sort of chit-chatting on our email thread. Was this the most boring game? I almost took a nap.
It was 100% the most boring game, and I not only had to watch it once, I had to watch it twice because I had to edit the damn thing this morning. So, and I'll get this. I'll get to this like when I get to, when I'd say my thing about it. It was just a very inconsistent game, and it just wasn't the excitement that you want from a rugby game.
So turnover after turnover. Let's start with some positives. So Austin made the game line compared to last week when they didn't. New York scored a bonus point, but gosh, did it look ugly. This is going to be a tough take for, obviously, Austin has a shit ton of stuff to work on going into next season. Last year, they had a decent attack, but no defense. And this year, they have a relatively decent attack, but no attack whatsoever, really. When I think about injuries, Austin changed their dynamic more so than any other team in the league. By doing this, it had a negative effect on, come game time. They stayed committed to their foreign players that they had signed instead of looking at domestic options when they ran into injuries. Thing is that full-time model will be in greater use in Season 3, so maybe the early adoption will work out for them. But they definitely needed to bring in more. They definitely need to bring in more North American qualified players. So Canadian or American, doesn't matter. So that they just have players available. Sunao Takezawa, he's a pretty good prop, I think. Like he had an impact for the 30 minutes he was on the line, I thought. So New York. Did you guys go party the night before? Because you looked hung over. That's probably because Austin played sort of decent defense, but it was just still sluggish.
As somebody who played at NVU, Lyndon, I can personally attest to what a hungover team looks like, and I quite agree.
It was so sluggish. They gave up the ball a lot. Yeah, not that Austin could do anything with it, but it certainly made it a lot. It made the game look a lot closer. But another way to lose a game is to lose 25% of your scrums and 33% of your lineouts. That is Austin for you. So set piece has been a theme this week. However, I mean, they've got some guys that can jackal. They've got 4 breakdown steals. They had a faster quick ball rate. And yet, when you make more turnovers and more penalties, it's, even though the game is sluggish, you're still going to lose for the most part, unless you're San Diego.
Unless you're San Diego. Wales, vagina. So, wholeheartedly agree with you, Aaron. This is one of the most boring rugby matches I had ever watched. Like I said, edited this game this morning, and I felt like it was a really inconsistent just watching experience. Honestly, I don't think I saw a whole lot of phases or a whole lot of drives that lasted past 4 or 5 phases. So that was probably a big thing that was bothering me. In the head-to-head statistics, RUNY came away with 56% possession advantage, along with a 55% mark in territory play. RUNY managed just a little bit over 800 meters, by which I mean 801 meters with an MPP of 5.0, while Austin came away up with 642 meters and an MPP of 5.5. huge aspect that made this game so damn inconsistent. Double-digit turnovers, as Aaron mentioned. New York, they gave it away 16 times, while Austin upped that with 18. So definitely, you would think that nobody's going to gain a clear advantage in a game like that. But New York's pretty, I think it's number 2 ranked defense. I think this is they kind of made sure that margin stayed in their favor. The game's leading rusher, surprisingly, coming from Austin by the way of the ever underrated Zinzan Elon Puddock with 120 total meters. The next closest for the game was Will Leonard from New York with 94 total meters. Not much more you can really say about this game other than New York really needed this win with their playoffs hopes on the line, but it's not like a whole lot of people expected a different result.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, which will be borne out in our results review here right now. So, with that said, this is the part of the show where we like to go through and honor our failures and celebrate our victories, which off the top, not only, Liam, did you get this one right as far as your win pick for the first game, you got it right on the money with your guess for point spread too. So
hey,
good work, my friend.
Is it the only game that I got right on the money this week?
I think there was another one. I mean, yeah, there was one.
Yep, there was. There was a second one.
Indeed.
2 out of 4 were exactly right. You should need to go to Vegas. Take this action on the road, man. Okay, first up, we had SaberCats traveling to New Orleans. They won 27-20. Aaron, you had New Orleans by 15. Liam had Houston by 7. And I had NOLA by 20. So good work, Liam. All right. Second game of the weekend was Seattle at Glendale. Aaron, you had Seattle by 3. Liam, you had Seattle by 10. I had Glendale by 5. Considering any of us for being close on this one, I'll just say I was the furthest off. So I'll go ahead and take that one. Then we had SaberCat or San Diego at Utah, and we all picked correctly on that one. We said San Diego. Aaron, you had him by 15. Liam, you had him by 21, and I was on the money with saying by 10. And then last game of the weekend, here's Liam's other perfect shot, was Austin Elite at RUNY. Aaron, you had him, final score was 7-27 in RUNY's favor. And Aaron, you had RUNY by 10. Liam had RUNY by 20. I had RUNY by 22. So can't beat that.
It's only disrespectful if you're wrong when you guess a margin like that.
So to that, adding to that, Liam offers the following lotto pick numbers for the week. And they are 3, 6, 11, and 45. So once again, that's 3, 6, 11, 45. Go ahead and lay your money down now, fellas. Real quick, we also had
I swear to God, if a listener wins the lottery, I will actually walk into the ocean.
Tell you what, if somebody wins off those numbers, can they just send us $150 for our web hosting for next year, since that bill's coming due soon? That's all we need. We don't need $1 million. We just need $150. It's not that hard. All right. Real quick, we should probably hit on the exhibition match that Old Glory DC hosted as well against, I believe, a club, right? Shannon?
Yeah, so Shannon RFC is one of the older clubs in Ireland. They're 137 years old, I think. Josh can fact check me on that one because he threw it out there on Reddit. So 22-26, but it was 3-26, 10 going into the half, and it really looked like Shannon was going to run away with this. But good Lord, did they fall apart. That was probably one of the, they really fell apart. And this probably explains why they got relegated from the top division of the All-Ireland League. Yeah, that's a hot take, but they outmatched Old Glory physically completely throughout the entire game, and then just started playing like crap. So, Yeah, the other hot take, this was mentioned. You guys got to get better fitting kit. Every single player was wearing a tent.
Yeah, it looked like PRO uniforms, dude. I just have this image of Jamie McIntosh's jersey hanging off him like a child's like pickup rugby jersey or something like that. Just they must have they ordered like a size too big for Jamie freaking McIntosh. I'm talking about PRO, by the way, a few years ago, just in terms of really crappy uniforms. But in terms of this game, wasn't able to watch this game. Or fully. I saw a few highlights, but anytime an MLR club can hang with that kind of, within that kind of point margin with the European side, it's a good sign. So, especially knowing this club is ultimately going to sign a few MLR vets along the way. So, hopefully, it looks like Old Glory DC will be competitive in 2020, or hopefully.
And I should have pulled this up, and I apologize I didn't, but they do have a series of exhibitions coming up in the next few months on into June. So
they play the Scottish under-20s this weekend. It might be a bloodbath.
it might be, but hey, it's good practice, right?
Marginally and physically.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron, take us through the standings in MLR after week 17.
So really, I think we can say that San Diego will have a home playoff game. They currently sit atop the league, 11 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, and they have 57 table points. NOLA currently sits in second. There is a scenario that could see them fall out, but I don't see them not having enough bonus points to stay in. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win one of the next 2, but I definitely know it's not going to be their last game against San Diego, because San Diego is going on a bye and they will be rested and they will want to be in form for the playoffs. But at 9-5 with 52 table points is second New Orleans Gold. At third is 10-4 Seattle Seawolves with 51 table points, and tied with wins, but not in bonus points, is the RUNY Roosters, 10-4 with 49 table points. They just edged out Toronto with that bonus point win. Toronto, we'll see them in the final week of the season. So I think the playoff actually goes through Toronto in general. So if Toronto win, they're in, and New York is not. Basically, there is also a scenario that Glendale could somehow win, but yeah, I don't see that. I don't see them getting in. So 9-5 with 48 total points at fifth. Glendale at 7-5-2, 43 table points in sixth. And somehow, some way, the Utah Warriors at 2-11-1 with 17 table points. Or in seventh. Houston SaberCats. I think this will shift, unless things dramatically change this weekend. At 3-10 with 15 table points is the Houston SaberCats, and continuing on the undefeated streak at 0-14 with only 4 table points is Austin Elite Rugby in ninth.
Again, we got to stop saying undefeated. Just call it Hugh Jacksoning.
Very good. And so just as for some perspective here, we've got two weeks left of the regular season, and then we go into playoffs starting on Saturday, June 8th. So we are close. This is it, guys. So we got get some stuff going here. We're definitely going to know very, very quickly.
Season 2, we're staring down the barrel, or we're at the end of the barrel, I guess. Bottom unzi barrel.
All right, so let's talk preview for this coming weekend, week 18 of the competition. And things start off on Saturday, where Austin travels to Houston. Aaron, what's your prediction here?
Houston by 15. I think Austin just is weird, so that's the only reason why it's going to be relatively close, but it's not going to look close.
I'm going to go Houston minus 12. I think Austin's going to bring a pretty competitive edge just to avoid the ultimate Hugh Jacksoning. However, Houston, we have our confidence up. I think we're operating at a really, much higher level than we have been all season. No way we're dropping this one, but knock on wood. Is this shitty piece of IKEA furniture even wood?
It is.
It probably has wood in it.
Like wood shavings.
Second up. Oh, so I'm sorry. I should have said the Austin at Houston game is at 6 p.m. Eastern. That is on CBS Sports Network. Okay, second game of the weekend goes to. By the way, Houston. I'm saying Houston by 10. Second game of the weekend is Sunday, and that is at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. NOLA Gold at RUNY. Aaron, what's your prediction on this one?
New York -3. I think New Orleans gets at least 1 bonus point, maybe 2. I know New York's defense is tightening up, but they just played Austin, and they didn't. I mean, Austin ain't good, and they didn't thump them. Like that scoreline was very, it was nice, but it wasn't real per se.
Well, just for the sake of going against the grain and looking for that ultimate, sleeper pick when it comes to the end of the year tally, I'm going to go with NOLA on this one. I'm going to rely on the fact that their offense still has a lot of explosive elements to it that they can most definitely use to take advantage of New York. Also, New York sometimes has been known to fall into a few trap games, especially when it comes to their offense not operating at the level that they're capable of. So I am going to go NOLA -5.
And on this one, I'm picking the home team. I'm going to say RUNY by 7. Second up on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus is Glendale at Toronto. Aaron?
Wait. Are there oh gosh, no, really?
Yeah, they're stacked. Hour apart.
I'm good. So let's get real, guys. I'm good with these games. If you have 3 games on a Saturday, I'm good with it. We can do that. Man, this is a kick in the nads. All right. Well, I guess I get sort of paid for this.
Splitting your Memorial Day weekend in half.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm going Toronto -5. This one. They've got a better scrum. They've got a better line out. They've got some backs that can ball. But it's still gonna be close. I can see Glendale getting at least 1 bonus point here.
I'm going to go against the grain one more time, and I'm going to go against the grain one more time. I'm going to go Glendale on this one. Just like NOLA, they still have some pretty explosive elements, to their roster. And I also just the end of the year point tally, man, I got to be different. So I'm going to go Glendale -6.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say Toronto by 3, just because. Especially the stumble Glendale had last week. I'm just not sure they're going to they're bringing their A game right now. Final game of the weekend is 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, and that is the Warriors at Seattle. And I think we're all pretty well agreed on how this one's going to come out. But hey, we'll see what happens. Aaron?
Wait. Yes. Good old Utah. Yeah, not happening. I'm going Seawolves -10 for their home finale, which is sold out. So, yeah. And, they're healthy right now, unlike San Diego was. So, but Utah has some cohesion, so I could see them getting a try bonus point, but I don't see them getting within enough points to get 2 bonus points here.
Yeah, I'm not going to be going against the grain on this one. Definitely not. Yeah, Seattle -10. I think Utah will keep it competitive. Again, it's going to be that effect where they want to avoid, finishing with a possible 2-12 and 2-13 and 1 record or whatever the hell. Yeah, so Seattle -10.
Yeah, and I'm saying Seattle -12 on that one. It's just pretty straightforward. So, I mean, stranger things have happened. After all, Houston won a game this weekend, so who knows? All right. See what I know and everybody else doesn't is that Liam's having headphone issues, and so he's staying muted a little bit more often than not this episode, which means I can taunt him and he can't just jump in and shout back at me. So it's time for my favorite part of the show, and I know you guys love it too. It's time for questions from Bob. As always, these questions are sourced from our Reddit page. So.
Sorry, I couldn't get to the unmute button fast enough.
It's all good, my friend. So it's reddit.com/r/MLRugby, and we post Sunday nights or Mondays asking for submitted questions. And here's what we got this week. So USA Rugby Fan asks, how should I remove my NOLA MLR Championship 2019 tattoo?
Lasering's painful. So get a cover up for when they win in 2020, 2021, 2022, whatever. Whenever they win, you can get a cover up for that.
There you go.
You can totally just go the white trash route and just get something generic like a skull or a friggin' eagle on top of a motorcycle with a bear, and I don't know. Get something badass, man.
Well, and my advice to you, USA Rugby fan, is don't do anything yet. Because as Seattle proved last year, they can drop 2 games during the regular season to an opponent and still beat them in the championship. So, you know what? You never know what's going to happen in the playoffs. Bob B. Boberson asks, what does Utah need to do to get over the hump and start winning these close games? Liam?
Yep, sorry, had to get to the damn mute button. Basically, what Utah needs to do, less penalties and turnovers and better execution inside the 22. We always talk about how they look good but don't really get a whole lot accomplished, and that's a big issue, is they just don't score because they don't do anything inside the 22. They need space to operate, and there's not a lot of space inside the 22.
Yeah.
Scrum.
Scrum.
Okay. Utah Warriors, scrum.
Conky2195 asks, what went wrong for Austin this season?
An attack that works, because it didn't. Injuries, sticking to foreign player contracts, and not finding local guys for short-term deals. About it.
What went wrong? I'm kicking. I'm a Blink-182 head, but yeah. Honestly, just injuries and the system, and there's probably something to be said about not being able to attract local club talent to the team and to that environment. It was just really unfortunate because they have a lot of talent.
What if I said that local talent wouldn't have helped, based on just the lack of cohesion and the fact that most of that local talent wasn't signed by anyone else? There you go. So I think that's a myth. I really do.
Well, so I'll throw one out. Since we spent half the season complaining about coaching at Houston, why don't we say something about the coaching at Austin?
I mean, Houston gave them cover, man. If they want to make a change, they got cover. Someone else made a change.
All right. Jay Board Surfer. Having lost 3 of their last 4 and on the road to New York and San Diego at the end of the season, what are the odds NOLA doesn't make the playoffs?
Honestly, I don't think it's very likely. I think NOLA gets 2, if not at least 1 more victory on the season to finish with 10 wins, and I think 10 wins is a pretty safe ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're good.
All right. Robert Gibbs 1. If you could transfer just one player to each of the bottom 3 teams from any of the other 6 teams in the league to give them a better chance in 2020, who would that be? And if a car left New York traveling 55 miles an hour on its way to Boston, what color would that car be?
The engineer would be at least a size 9 shoe, but I don't. I that's the only formula that I know off the top of my head.
Shit brown would be the color of the car, and it would be smoking because, well, it needs its mufflers checked. But the players would be Joe Peterson to Austin, because he's just a wizard. Brad Tucker to Utah, and Nate Brakeley to Houston. What I got?
All right. So I really like that Nate Brakeley pick to Houston. I don't think our second row is as bad as Aaron might consider it. However, I would go Tristan Blewett to Houston, Harley Davidson to Austin, and Dylan Fawcett to Utah.
All right. Switching over to Twitter now. Life Love Rugby, and that's at LL Rugby. If Jon Snow played rugby, what number would he be?
So I'm gonna say, since he kills a lot of people, a 7. Like, he's an undersized 7, like sort of in the Michael Hooper. I guess maybe even, well, Hanko Hamish is taller than Michael Hooper, but you get the point. A short, open side that does a lot of work and gets murdered as well.
I just can't see him at 7 because Kit Harington is a very tiny man, very small, tiny man.
So
these cinematographers had to work overtime to shoot him in such a way that he didn't appear so tiny. Like Maisie Williams is a very short woman, and she's almost as tall as, not as tall as Kit Harington, but she's up to his nose. So yeah, no, he's definitely a 9. If anything, he's
so
great.
So here's a good one. So Kit he's a big rugby guy. He loves rugby, and I need to find it. One of the reasons why he got into acting is because I think he got a ton of injuries playing rugby. Oh, he was a wing. I definitely thought he was a 9. So there you go. Oh, gotcha. Never mind, Josh. I think he was a scrum half, and I think he was the kind of scrum half that likes to mix it up, and he broke some bones in some bad places. So there you go. So Liam would get it for truthfulness. I was just going with it based on what he does in Game of Thrones, which is kill people and get murdered. So there you
go. Okay. Last question of the night. This one comes from Joel D. Gregg, and that's Joel_Greg1. Who will be the biggest name for the USA who will be the biggest new name for USA Rugby at the Rugby Cup in September?
I don't think there's going to be any new people, because I think all the new people I've brought into squad, and David Ayunu and Ruben DeHaas, we've seen Boyer, we've seen Gannon Moore, but Gifted Bailu will be going on tour to cover the Eagles for the World Cup. So give him a shout. He will be writing articles. Maybe I should get him to write for us on this.
I would wholeheartedly support that as well.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Congratulations to him. All right. So final thoughts. Anybody have anything on our way out tonight?
So we did say we were going to talk Game of Thrones on the back end because, well, I guess you guys want to just fast forward through some of that. Some of you guys enjoy the Game of Thrones chat. So I guess Liam really liked it, and he'll explain why, and then I'll explain why I thought it was actually one of the better episodes of this train wreck of a season after him.
Well, tell you what, then, if we're going to talk Game of Thrones, let me go ahead and give our outro for folks so they know who we are and what we're about. And then for those of you guys who do want to check out just a couple minutes on us jabber John about Game of Thrones, you can stick around. So on our way out, let me just say, please note the opinions expressed on this show are those of the hosts and the guests and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or practices of Major League Rugby teams or the league. Aaron Castro is employed by Major League Rugby. Liam Poach is employed by West Houston Lions and Houston SaberCats. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll be live on YouTube every single Monday night and available on your favorite podcast platform each and every Wednesday morning. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our YouTube and iTunes feeds. It helps other folks find us. And be sure to share your own news, views, and abuse with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back next week.
Yes.
Oh, and be sure to hit us up. Sorry, Aaron, I just looked down at the comments. Also, hit us up on Twitter, guys. We're around. We're talking rugby and Game of Thrones. I'm at Corey Munson. Liam is at Poacher Rugby. Josh is at J0SHFE3D. And Aaron is at the Strobro. So be sure to check us out on Twitter. Yeah, we hang out and talk all sorts of stuff on there. So be sure to give us crap. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week with 100% less Game of Thrones talk.
So,
all right.
Hey,
what do you think?
So that Cedar Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to send me some because I looked at the Bevmo and the Total Wine in their catalog. They do not stock it, so I wouldn't mind having some Iowa corn whiskey, as it were, since we trash the Iowa corn all the time.
Hey, it's good stuff, man. Like if you're looking for a solid bourbon.
So wait, is it like literally like fermented corn?
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Iowa-grown corn.
that's what most whiskey malts are. They have a lot of corn in them, to include Scotch or Irish whiskey.
Well, I can tell you that one thing that has a lot of whiskey in it on a Saturday night, and that is me.
So yeah,
Game of Thrones.
what did you think, Liam?
So I haven't been as critical of this season as a lot of other people have, other than a few glaring issues that I just am not getting over. As somebody who studied film in college, I'm a lot more bothered by the damn Starbucks cup than I wish I was.
Okay, let's just to attack the editing here. So you had the Starbucks cup. You had Nikolai Coster-Waldau's real hand behind Lena Headey's back, and then this plastic water bottle.
And last episode, you also had, not last episode, but 2 weeks ago, you had the dragon scorching the city without Danny writing it. So,
yep. I just know I work in a studio in Hollywood, and I just know for a fact it is somebody's job to watch these episodes and find shit like that. Like it is a literal you had one job scenario. But anyway, like other than that, one of the big plot lines that me and Aaron agree with was Jamie's character development and his decision to leave Winterfell and go back to Cersei. However, where me and Aaron are going to eventually disagree, though, is in the character arc of Tyrion. I think Tyrion's decision to go back and find the bodies of his brother and sister, I think, speaks a lot to the fact that Tyrion in this show has always had this sort of intrinsic, devotion to his family that, is one of the aspects of himself that he really does hate. But at the end of the day, he does accept the fact that he's a Lannister, and throughout the show, he has shown concern. He's shown even faith in his brother and sister as to whether or not they could be good human beings. We saw him try to appeal to Cersei by mentioning her children and how he always thought she was a good mother. I think when you grow up with somebody who's bad, or who turns out bad in adulthood, you see that human side of them that others tend to not. And I think that was kind of the point with Tyrion, is that despite what they may have become, these were his siblings. He saw the human aspect of them, and he definitely did feel a few modicums of remorse about killing his father. He brings it up on several occasions, and I think that's just kind of a textbook side effect of of PTSD and grief. So big ups to Peter Dinklage and the way he portrayed this character. I didn't have the whole choosing of Bran the Broken as king. It just was just too simple and too fast. I thought, one big issue I've had with this season has really been pacing, and I thought, again, Peter Dinklage is such a great actor. Sophie Turner, I think, is a pretty good actor for the part that she's playing. And honestly, it was so funny when she told her uncle to sit down. Just, yeah. So good episode. Not the best season, but not the worst. Not as bad as people think.
I would say if I went off this episode and purely went from the last episode and how it built to that, Act 1's writing was really good. I thought they really destroyed Tyrion's character, making him this really sappy person. But writing and directing overall of this episode, I thought Act 1 was very good. I was like, man, this is going to be a good episode, even though I know the end, because I sort of read the spoilers and kind of figured it out before the spoilers. And then my girlfriend freaking told me that Tormund came back from the north and killed Dany. Like, that was a spoiler. I was like, and then I went up, because she doesn't watch it with me. She only watches scary shit during the day. So I was like, you freaking liar. Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, I really don't, Tyrion had way too many sappy bullshit speeches in this for me, which is, he was such a, strongly developed character throughout the series, right? The sappy bullshit, family send-off at the end of the show with King's Landing somehow being rebuilt in 4 weeks was beyond stupid. Somehow no one says, hey, even though the part where Jon Snow hadn't been killed by the Unsullied was kind of weird. There's no fucking way that Grey Worm doesn't just run him through with a spear and just keep him posted on the wall and then just go ham, because the Dothraki and Unsullied seem to be just coming out of the woodwork, just regeneration. It's like Warhammer 40K or something like that. The King's Council that chose Bran was really dumb. I guess I sort of understand the character of Edmure Tully when you really think about it and go in depth. It's sort of tragic there because he's had a rough life per se and probably would be a decent king. But everyone going, yay, Bran, baby! Let's elect our kings now. Let's elect an absolute monarch just like they do on Naboo. Yeah, I brought a Star Wars reference, just like they do on Naboo. Oh yeah. So
Man,
that's just cold. That's like hot cold.
But
you know what? This game might have been the Game of Thrones might have been better if it ended with. Have you ever seen Apocalypse? It's not Apocalypse Now. It's some Mel Gibson directed movie about the Mayan.
Apocalypto.
Yeah, Apocalypto. And you know how spoiler, it ends with them on the beach, like seeing like a big ship like out in the distance and realizing the problems are petty compared to what's about to come. If the last shot of Game of Thrones had just been an Imperial Star Destroyer from Star Wars moving in the distance and everybody just kind of stops, that would have been great.
So Yara Greyjoy goes, you know, Dany was our queen, and then all of a sudden accepts Bran as king. That was bullshit. And then Dorne going, especially after, so Sansa goes, no, little brother, the North fought to be free, and we will be free. And then Dorne just going, yeah, we'll stay, bro. No, Dorne's out. Like, Dorne's the first one out. Like, you don't, especially since his family is no longer part of the kingdom, dude has no household knights. He's freaking screwed here. Like, he's going to die. And then you're just going to go right back into the next thing, because if you're not going by hereditary bloodline and you're not having a real democracy, just having the dude that is the memory of the place, and he has to hang out with the heart tree instead of just, you know, reading books, you know, having a library to have all your memories is kind of dumb. At the end of the day, like, the best claimant to the throne got like shipped to the wall, but guess what? He became king beyond the wall, because he looked back. Good old Aegon Targaryen looked back, and they closed the gate on him, and they said, "Boss, we love you, but you deserve to be free." At least
he
Ghost
reunited with Ghost.
At least Ghost is still alive. That's all I gotta say, man.
Ghost got his pet. He got it.
Ghost was like the so abused like pet of the entire series. Oh,
Ghost is Boba Fett. He's very rarely seen, but just badass, and everybody just wants to see more of him constantly, but they just never do.
So, yeah, I if this is sort of how it ends in the books, I'm going to be annoyed. I'm sort of rooting for an R or an egg and Dany sort of thing. That would be kind of cool, but at least there will be like 3,000 to 4,000 pages of build up to get to Bran. Like, there's going to be a lot of details flushed out to where somehow the Children of the Forest had this fucking master plan to where, you know, the Three-Eyed Raven takes over. Like, sort of creating a long night and stemming a long night and all that. Yeah. So, there you go.
So here's a question that I've been having basically all day. So if Bran sees the future, does he have the ability to manipulate events to bend the future to his will?
All right, hold on. I had this exact same thought, and I think Bran sees many futures. I think it's kind of like a Doctor Strange sort of situation where he's not omniscient, or more like a Dr. Manhattan sort of thing. He's not omniscient. He just sees, you know, how everything can kind of turn out, you know, in one way or another. And I don't think he gets a coherent, like timeline of what's going to happen. I think he kind of gets events. Who knows, man? I don't know the way of wargs and ravens.
He may see he probably sees some type of future. It probably doesn't. He's not at the stage where he can just see the future. Like, so we don't know where, like, I think the previous Three-Eyed Raven was the Three-Eyed Raven for a couple hundred years. So he obviously could see everything. But that would make sense. But the dude can have no children, and he's confined to a wheelchair. So I just see all the rules of Westeros sort of like actually going back into effect once he's dead.
We're also assuming that it's going to be a happily ever after. Bullshit. Somebody doesn't fucking kill him. Like, come on, like 10 years from now, somebody's going to. You think Euron Greyjoy is like the last of the psychopaths from the Iron Islands? Like,
that was one of the biggest faux pas, I guess, from this whole series, is that everyone saw how sadistic in the show and psycho and evil Ramsay was. Well, Euron makes Ramsay look like a middle schooler. Like he raped 2 of his brothers. One of them had grayscale. Was incapacitated by it was Euron's an evil. He's an evil bro. He's nasty. So I guess portraying that would have been tough because he was evil.
So if I were to have my druthers and could pick any one character to have a spinoff, and I realize that all the spinoffs are prequels or there's not going to have any of the primary cast. I understand that. I'm just saying, in my perfect dream world, I would follow Arya across the ocean all day, every day, because I want to see where she's going, and I want to know what's west of Westeros. I really do.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or Tormund and Jon Snow. Or just a series that cuts back, it just follows the Starks, but kind of like Game of Thrones sort of did, but I don't know, more of their own storylines. I'm so tired.
All right, guys, let's do some final thoughts on Game of Thrones and then wrap her up for the night.
Yeah, so 8 years, I guess 9 years, because we had to wait an extra year, and kind of I guess if they were going to say it was a bittersweet ending, it was more of a bitter ending because it just kind of sucked.
I'm happy with it. It's not perfect, but it's not Dexter.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, everybody who stayed with us throughout the extra innings here, and we will be back with, like I said, 100% less Game of Thrones talk next week, right here on YouTube. That's Monday night, and on your favorite podcast platform Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Earful of Dirt. We'll catch you next time.